Hello friends, if you want to watch super hit movie The Beekeeper in English, then you must like this video. If you are visiting our channel for the first time, don't forget to subscribe to our channel friends in today's video. The movie we are going to talk about is called The Beekeeper. We will talk about what this movie is and where you can watch it, all the interesting facts about this movie in today's video. I am going to tell you, I also going to give you all the information on which OT platform or on which satellite channel you will get to watch this movie. Also, we will talk in detail about the technical department, music department, pre-production filming, post-production, budget, box office collection of this film. We will also talk about the story of this film, and I will also give you a small review of the story of this film. Apart from this, we will discuss about the facts of this film, storyline, star cast, actor's performance in the film and which character is played, which role. That's why I request you friends to watch this video till the end. So let's start the video. The Jason Statham action film The Beekeeper has generated buzz, and now The Beekeeper 2 is on the way. Debuting in 2024, the action hit stars Statham as a former member of a mysterious group called the Beekeepers, who goes on a brutal mission of revenge to take down a powerful scammer who robs regular people of their money. Though the movie was released with little fanfare, the simple but effective action flick pushed all the right buttons and became the first surprise smash of 2024. Unlike many of its action contemporaries who lean heavily on schlock, The Beekeeper scored high marks from critics who praised its simplicity, briskness, and Statham's easy performance via Rotten Tomatoes. More important than its critical success, The Beekeeper crossed major box office milestones in the early weeks of 2024. Guaranteeing its spot as a bona fide blockbuster. This kind of success is a surefire sign that a sequel is in the works, and The Beekeeper 2 is finally coming to fruition. Coming more than a year after the first movie debuted, the latest news confirms that The Beekeeper 2 is happening, but with some major changes behind the camera. The first film was helmed by David Ayer, Fury, Suicide Squad, but the director isn't returning in that role. Instead, the director's chair has been given to Timo Tjahjanto. The night comes for us, no stranger to the action genre. Jason Statham is set to reprise his title role, but no other casting or story details are known at this time. Coming as the first box office success of 2024, it came as no surprise that there was hope for an action-packed sequel to The Beekeeper. However, it took more than a year for the follow-up to be confirmed, when The Beekeeper 2 was announced in late February 2025. While many details about the sequel are unknown, director David Ayer won't be back to direct, but is instead potentially being brought on as a producer. Instead, directing duties have gone to Timo Tjahjanto. Despite the change, many other facets of the sequel are going to remain the same, including returning star Jason Statham, who will reprise his lead role. Also returning is screenwriter Kurt Wimmer, who penned the first film. Shooting on The Beekeeper 2 starts in fall 2025, but nothing else is currently known about its production timeline. With filming happening late in 2025, it's assumed that the sequel is gunning for a summer 2026 release window. So far, the only name attached to the cast of The Beekeeper 2 is Jason Statham, who will return to reprise his role as Adam Clay. The retired beekeeper exacted his revenge in the first film, but he'll be back to save the day, or perhaps save himself from retribution that's surely coming his way after The Beekeeper. There are a few of Statham's co-stars who could be back in the sequel since Adam killed many of his foes, and it seems as if many storylines were tightly wrapped up. It's possible that Emmy Raver-Lampman could reprise her role as FBI agent Verona Parker, since she aligned herself with Adam by the Beekeeper ending. However, it's also highly likely that The Beekeeper 2 will introduce a slew of new characters, especially since the concept of the Beekeepers organization lends itself perfectly to standalone action stories. Despite delivering an action-packed and exciting ending, The Beekeeper left a lot of unanswered questions that a sequel could easily answer. Unlike many action films which offer a narrow scope, The Beekeeper 2 could go in a multitude of directions and still be interesting. The sequel could be a prequel, exploring why Adam Clay Statham initially left the Beekeepers behind. On the other hand, the story could follow Clay after the events of the first film and perhaps turn the organization into his newest enemy. Having made an enemy of both the Beekeepers and the President of the United States, Adam is in quite a bit of hot water. On the other hand, having learned of the massive amounts of corruption that put President Danforth in the White House, she could become Adam's next target. Whatever happens in The Beekeeper 2, it has the potential to become another explosive hit. While Jason Statham is one of the biggest action stars working in Hollywood today, he hasn't pushed that into big franchises on his own. As an ensemble player, he appeared in the Expendables and Fast and Furious franchises, but had limited sequels in the Transporter, Crank, Mechanic, and Meg franchises. What makes this movie a potential long-running franchise is the mythology behind the idea of the Beekeepers. In the Transporter, there was a mystery to the world in which Frank Martin lived. Statham explored that in the sequels. Adam Clay's past and his former organization are ripe for a deeper dive in the sequels. This could also work for the same reason Denzel Washington's Equalizer movies remain so popular. Audiences love to see beloved action heroes like Washington and Statham doing the right thing and helping people in need. The Beekeeper could easily turn into a similar series like The Equalizer, which could make it a box office success. The news came in February 2025 that the Beekeeper sequel was in the works. It also said that the cameras would start rolling in the fall. This leaves the release date pretty open for sometime in 2026, or possibly as late as 2027. Statham has been a reliable source of action movies, and they usually hit theaters like clockwork. His 2025 movie, A Working Man, hit in March. The Beekeeper arrived in January 2024. The Meg 2 was a blockbuster, and it arrived in June 2023. His 2021 action film, Wrath of Man, arrived in May. Looking ahead, he has Mutiny coming to the theaters in 2026, and based on his history, it should come early. Statham rarely has multiple movies where he is in the leading role in the same year. While he had 4 movies come out in 2023, 3 of them were more ensemble movies. There is a chance The Beekeeper 2 could change that, but don't be surprised if it doesn't arrive in theaters until the first part of 2027. Imagine that one of the boiler room scumbags from The Wolf of Wall Street bankrupted Jason Bourne's mother. That's more or less the starting point of The Beekeeper, which stars Jason Statham as a wraith-like ex-commando who meets out Old Testament vengeance against tech bros who use the latest inventions to rob people online. Statham's character is named Adam Clay, an MMA upgrade of Clint Eastwood's The Man with No Name. We don't know anything about Adam except that he lives out in the country raising bees and selling their honey, and that he's played by Statham, which means he's no ordinary beekeeper. His best friend is an older woman named Eloise Parker, Felicia Rashad, who lives in the farmhouse near his and rents him space in her barn. According to Adam, Eloise is the only person who ever took care of him. Eloise makes the terrible mistake of responding to a phishing scam from a data mining company that empties her bank account, as well as the account of a nonprofit she helped found, leading to tragedy. Adam trades his beekeeper uniform for commando gear and disguises and works his way up the criminal food chain, doing what the law won't. We don't know exactly how Eloise came to take care of Adam, much less precisely what he means when he describes her that way. It's to the film's credit that it never elaborates, just as it never elaborates on who Adam was before he became a super-duper extra-secret commando who has never been fingerprinted and exists outside of every known governmental structure and seems, from other characters' descriptions, to be an agent of self-regulation for society. The film is the brainchild of director David Ayer, Suicide Squad, Fury, and veteran action film and thriller screenwriter Kurt Wimmer, who wrote or co-wrote remakes of The Thomas Crown Affair, Point Break, and Total Recall. It appreciates the virtues of its leading man, who appears to have come by his muscles honestly and does everything from dialogue to martial arts to gunplay as simply as possible. Statham is the kind of leading man who makes you lean forward in your seat, and he's gotten better with age. This performance builds on his superb work in Guy Ritchie's Wrath of Man, which also presented him with the challenge of riveting an audience's attention while playing a character who was more of an idea than a person. Statham's matter-of-fact minimalism in The Beekeeper makes it all the more moving when Adam tersely speaks of how much Eloise meant to him, or waxes philosophical on the organization of the beehive and the necessity of ensuring a functioning society. There aren't too many action heroes who could deliver a line like, "I believe there's good in the universe," and not only make you believe that the character believes it, but that the film believes it. A word about the bad guys. It's genuinely impressive how well cast they are, especially considering their number. Standouts include David Witz as Garnett, the boiler room leader who personally bilks Eloise, narrating his conquest to a room full of junior vultures with the brio of a Tom Cruise-style 80s go-getter. Josh Hutcherson as the data mining company's vice president Derek Danforth, the spoiled, sleazy, coked-out son of the President of the United States. Gemma Redgrave, Jeremy Irons as Derek's boss, former CIA Director Wallace Westwild, an exasperated cynic who seems as if he wandered in from Veep, and Taylor James as a braying wanker of a mercenary who brags that he once killed a guy like Adam and can't wait to do it again. They're all morally and/or physically revolting. Derek looks like he's been marinating in oat milk, and Hutcherson reads his lines in that preppy teenage snot voice that a lot of trust fund boys never lose even when they enter their 50s. When James's character gets worked up while denigrating Adam, he spits misty plumes of saliva. Irons is dressed and lit to exaggerate the royal rotter look that made him so perfect in 1990s black comedies, psychosexual thrillers, and horror flicks. It's a real shame that The Beekeeper isn't the righteous trash masterpiece that it keeps threatening to turn into. There's a great pop hit in here somewhere, probably one that focused exclusively on Adam and the awful people he's going after. But the film is scattered and annoyingly glib at times. There's a well-acted but ultimately unnecessary secondary plot about Eloise's FBI agent daughter Verona Parker, Emmy Raver-Lampman, and her partner Matt Wiley, Bobby Naderi, who want to catch Adam and put him in jail even though Verona's initial theory about his complicity is instantly proved wrong. It seems as if she should recognize him as more of a Dr. Richard Kimball type. The FBI duo has undeniable chemistry, but the buddy cop comedy riffing in their scenes undercuts Verona, who should be as furious about and focused on what happened to her mother as Adam is. Worse, politically and philosophically, the movie wimps out in the end, in the way that a lot of vigilante action flicks wimp out, by reassuring us that the problem isn't systemic corruption baked into the national character or the human species, but a few bad apples doing bad stuff without their well-meaning boss's knowledge or approval. Even the most socially critical Hollywood genre films tend to lose their nerve in this way. They tell us that the problem is not systemic and purposeful corruption embedded in the marrow of our institutions, but anomalous people whose removal will restore things to their natural state of nobility. There was an opportunity to do something truly bold here, but the movie didn't take it. If there's any working actor who could literally as well as figuratively burn it all down and bring audiences to their feet cheering, it's Statham. Still, at its best, which is when Statham dominates the screen, shooting and maiming bad guys and setting gigantic fires, The Beekeeper is a work in the spirit of Billy Jack and the original Walking Tall. It's a fantasy about how satisfying it would be to brutalize and kill the sorts of white-collar crooks who prey on innocent people without fear of punishment. Watching The Beekeeper made me think about the elderly people in my life who have been victimized by scam artists, estate predators, and other swindlers, and the police and court officers who refuse to lift even a pinky to help get justice for them, and how satisfying it would be for all of them to get into their cars, glance at their rearview mirrors, and see Jason Statham in the back seat. The Beekeeper is the best kind of bad movie, which is to say, it's the sort that puts entertainment ahead of pretentiousness, embracing the laughter sure to accompany such an unapologetically stupid, ultra-violent premise. Starring Jason Statham in what feels like a parody of Jason Statham movies, this conspiracy-fueled action showcase tortures its central metaphor until it can only be seen as a joke, featuring the transporter star as ruthless, retired government assassin-turned-benevolent beekeeper Adam Clay, who's pushed back into berserker mode after a fishing attack targets the kindly old woman from whom he rents a barn. If you don't get a hearty belly laugh out of watching Statham scowl his way through the opening montage, in which Clay is shown collecting honey and tending his hives on a bucolic country estate, while landlady Eloise, Felicia Rashad, falls for a blatantly fishy online scam, then The Beekeeper is probably not for you. Saddled with a ludicrous, but never less than hilarious, script, director David Ayer puts fun ahead of plausibility, treating the Clay character as the ultimate enforcer anytime America's imperfect system of checks and balances needs adjustment. From the stylish opening credits sequence, in which close-up footage of healthy honeybees is intercut with unsettling views of ominous six-sided buildings, with one random octagon thrown in for no good reason, the movie plants the Da Vinci Code-like notion that a shadow organization known as the Beekeepers has been tasked with protecting society from corruption. That's an awful lot to ask people to infer from a montage, though Ayer mostly just wants to rev up our imaginations, judging by the quick, nearly subliminal shot of an American flag superimposed on an active beehive. Are the Beekeepers supposed to be an Illuminati ancient line of enforcers, or a more recent addition to the country's national security apparatus? And why are nearly all the major roles in this America-centric thriller, including that of U.S. President, played by English actors? These are the wrong kinds of questions to be asking. To be or not to be, taunts one character by way of alternative. The Beekeeper expects audiences to accept the claim that the top-secret team Clay once worked for is above the pay grade of former CIA honcho Wallace Westwild, Jeremy Irons, a vaguely George H.W. Bush-like figure, if only Bush had been British, sworn to protect twerpy tech pirate Derek Danforth, Josh Hutcherson, enjoying his role as the country's most entitled rich kid. The movie doesn't introduce these upper-level antagonists until after Clay has torched the call center responsible for driving poor Eloise to suicide. Eloise's daughter Verona, Emmy Raver-Lampman, works for the FBI, but traditional law enforcement is inexplicably useless in a case like this. The culprit, David Witz, is a douchebag who operates out of a neon-lit boiler room hidden in a nondescript office building. Relying on his old Beekeeper network for a lead, Clay rolls up, calmly informs the security guards that he intends to burn the place to the ground, and proceeds to do exactly that. His directness, coupled with a vain attempt to redeem the drones working the phone lines, comes across as chivalrous in the face of such dishonorable behavior. There's much talk of kicking the hornet's nest and protecting the hive. Never mind that bees and hornets are separate species entirely. As Clay traces the culprits responsible for draining Eloise's accounts as far up the chain as necessary, which in heir and screenwriter Kurt Wimmer's overactive imaginations reaches all the way to the White House. Depending on your appetite for cockamamie conspiracy theories, that conceit is either the dumbest or most brilliant thing about The Beekeeper. Engineered in such a way that partisan American audiences can indulge their distrust of recent U.S. leaders, the movie features characters who could be variously interpreted as proxies for Bush, Hillary Clinton, Hunter Biden, and the Trump clan. Meanwhile, Statham sticks to his brand, playing yet another variation on the bald-headed battering ram we've come to associate with the star. It's more than a little absurd that a cold-blooded killer would turn in his kill-whomever-you-please Beekeeper status to keep bees. How many ex-Navy SEALs have dedicated themselves to raising seals? And yet, such half-brained plotting is meant to suggest that Ayer and company don't find it necessary to waste their energy on backstory or psychology. The Beekeeper arrives in a post-John Wick world where a dead pet can trigger a killing spree. That style-first franchise feels like a direct reference to the movie's most over-the-top action scene, in which Clay's even crazier successor, played by Megan Lee in high heels and a shimmery pink trench coat, opens fire on a gas station. Ayer does a more than decent job directing the action scenes, which is what matters most with such a witless genre entry. Squads of goons carrying enormous guns line up for Statham to take on one at a time. Once he's decided to protect the hive, but oddly, not its queen president, Clay has no qualms about killing whoever steps in his way, whether it's the pros who answer to CIA honcho Janet Harwood, British actor Minnie Driver, or a grizzled mercenary like Lazarus, Taylor James, who's offed a beekeeper before and relishes the thought of swatting another. We're meant to be rooting for Statham's bug-brained vigilante, and yet, by the film's climax, in which he bursts in on the American president with gun drawn, it's hard not to be reminded of the scene 3 years and 6 days earlier, when self-appointed heroes from groups called the Proud Boys and Oath Keepers violently took matters into their own hands. Maybe trusting the fate of our democracy to a renegade beekeeper isn't the ideal solution this movie would have us believe. Review: The Beekeeper. If you're not in the market for what David Ayer is forcefully selling in batty January thriller, The Beekeeper at the point when someone says to the titular character, "To be or not to be, that is the bloody question," then you might as well just give up and walk out. By this stage, late in the film, Ayer and screenwriter Kurt Wimmer have given us just about enough bee puns, bone cracks, and bizarre cameos from British actors to give those in the right headspace. Read Drunk, a solid low-stakes, medium-reward New Year's effort. I can't imagine a devoted beekeeper hive emerging anytime soon. It's far too derivative and far too rough around the edges. But there's enough energy and well-pitched silliness to have audiences swarming to cinemas this weekend. It's primed as Jason Statham's John Wick. Not that the actor needs another franchise, since out of his last 10 movies, only 2 were not part of a series, and its desperation to be so can often be distracting. But in a crowded landscape of equally desperate imitators, it makes a more persuasive case than most. Statham knows exactly what to do here, more than most would, and has figured out just how seriously or not to take such material. During the cold open, you'd be forgiven for thinking that this was going to be more serious than most. He plays a withdrawn beekeeper working on land owned by a retired teacher, played by the luminous and wasted Felicia Rashad. In a surprisingly wrenching setup, she gets hoodwinked by a crooked call center into allowing access to her accounts, leading to automatic bankruptcy and a self-inflicted bullet through the head. Statham is spurred into tackling the system that preyed on her, and so a mission begins. It's an effectively involving motivator, although air rushes through it so fast that one can sense his boredom shooting a scene without shooting. A shame, as more of Rashad and her relationship with Statham wouldn't have gone amiss. It introduces her FBI agent daughter, a wildly unconvincing Emmy Raver-Lampman, and allows for the start of some hilariously rubbish dialogue delivered with a very grave face. Taking from an elderly person is as bad as stealing from a child, maybe worse. As well as many, often confusing lines involving bees. When someone hurts an older person, sometimes they are left to face the hornets alone. In screenwriter Kurt Wimmer's world, a beekeeper isn't just a beekeeper, but is also a trained assassin, part of a hive protecting the queen bee, which means that the FBI agents on his trail are forced to, read books on beekeeping to get to the bottom of this. Like most of these films, it's then structured like a video game all the way to the big bad boss. Given that it was set in the US, but filmed in the UK, these road stops involve an underused Mini Driver, a snarling Jeremy Irons, and a dead-behind-the-eyes Gemma Redgrave. None of them having anywhere near as much fun as Josh Hutcherson's obnoxious Nepo baby tech bro. Bizarrely and ambitiously, the beekeeper finds that the honey leads all the way to the White House, and Wimmer aims to vaguely make some sort of commentary about the fine line between the evils of politics and the evils of big business. But then, not really. He's not taking any of this all that seriously, proven in a finale that's all action and little talk, an ebulliently gory hallway fight scene is a real blast, and an end note that clumsily leaves things open for more. Statham is ever the pro. One wonders if he's had enough training at this stage to make a dangerously good assassin for real, but it's all more of the same. His 2 non-franchise films of late showed how great he can be when afforded both a little more lightness, Operation Fortune, and a lot more darkness, Wrath of Man, and it would be satisfying to see him try something just a little out of the ordinary next. He works well with Ayer, who himself works better on a smaller, gnarlier scale, allowed more freedom to get nasty. His Suicide Squad remains a great-looking what-if disaster. There's a grubby, late-night appeal to his dialed-up trash aesthetic, and The Beekeeper mostly works because of it. Be prepared for a sequel. The visuals are soaked in meaning. Golden light reflecting on sweat-drenched skin, swarms of bees, mirroring surveillance drones, rusting machinery contrasting vibrant fields of wildflowers, and beneath it all, that haunting score pulses like a heartbeat guiding us through the calm before the storm, the grief before the vengeance. But what truly elevates the film is its thematic boldness. It doesn't just tell a revenge story, it dissects the cost of vengeance, the decay of institutional ethics, and the loneliness of righteous men in a broken world. It draws parallels between the natural order of the hive and the chaos of human society, reminding us that the most dangerous monsters are often the ones in suits, hiding behind screens, draining the lives of the voiceless with nothing but a keystroke. And yet, for all its precision and purpose, The Beekeeper isn't without its stings. Some viewers may find its stoic pacing jarring, especially those expecting a non-stop explosion-laden action fest. The film demands patience. Its quiet moments stretch, its silences linger, dialogue is sparse, and exposition is almost non-existent, leading some to crave a bit more clarity about the world Clay once belonged to, a deeper exploration. Of the Beekeeper organization, its codes, history, and structure might have added another layer of richness to the mythology. Secondary characters, though effective, are often overshadowed by Clay's imposing presence, and some emotional beats rely on the audience's intuition rather than explicit development. It walks a tight trope between mystery and minimalism, and while that gives it its unique identity, it risks alienating those looking for conventional clarity. But maybe that's the point. The Beekeeper isn't here to explain itself. It's here to move like a shadow, strike like a swarm, and vanish before you can fully grasp what you've just experienced. It doesn't need a 3-hour runtime or a prequel or a tie-in series. It exists fiercely and fully in its own buzzing world. Compared to other films in the genre, it may not have the polish of a blockbuster franchise or the bombast of a superhero showdown, but it has something far more dangerous: focus, integrity, a singular voice in a chorus of noise. So, while it may not please everyone, what The Beekeeper offers is rare. A story that doesn't just entertain, but unnerves. A film that doesn't follow trends, but follows through. And in doing so, it becomes not just another revenge thriller, but a cinematic reckoning, standing proud in a field of flowers and fire, daring you to step closer and listen for the hum. In the swirling mist of revenge thrillers and redemption stories, The Beekeeper emerges not as just another tale of vengeance, but as a raw, atmospheric journey into the heart of loss, justice, and the delicate balance between chaos and order. At its core, the film tells the story of Adam Clay, a man who once belonged to a shadowy secret of order, a group that operates with surgical precision to maintain balance by eliminating those who exploit power to prey on the vulnerable. But when Clay's own life is shattered by the brutal death of his wife, a tragedy that exposes the rot festering within powerful institutions, he retreats into solitude, tending his bees in the quiet countryside, seeking solace in the rhythms of nature and the hum of his hives. Yet peace is a fleeting visitor when the corrupt forces responsible for his loss rise again, threatening to plunge society further into darkness. Clay is pulled back into the deadly game he once mastered. His path is clear to dismantle the monstrous syndicate from within, wielding the precision and patience learned from the bees he tends. But this is no simple revenge. It is a reckoning and unrelenting march through shadows and light, where every action ripples like a sting, awakening old enemies and new dangers alike. The narrative unfolds with the deliberate pacing of a swarm in motion, quiet moments thick with tension, sudden bursts of violent retribution, and the ever-present metaphor of the hive underscoring the story's heartbeat. Through Adam's journey, the film explores not just the mechanics of vengeance, but the emotional toll of carrying such a burden, the cost of maintaining one's humanity amidst the blood and betrayal. Layered with themes of ecological balance and the fragility of trust, the Beekeeper deftly intertwines the personal with the political, the intimate with the systemic. It is a story that challenges viewers to ponder the price of justice, the meaning of loyalty, and the possibility of redemption in a world that often seems beyond repair. This gripping blend of thriller and poetic reflection invites audiences not just to witness a man's fight against darkness, but to feel the weight of every sting, the warmth of every drop of honey, and the haunting echo of a world on the brink, where the smallest creatures can wield the greatest power, and one man's silent fury might just be the spark that ignites a revolution. Stepping deeper into the world of The Beekeeper, we uncover a cast of characters as layered and compelling as the story itself, each playing a crucial role in shaping the haunting atmosphere and emotional gravity that define the film. At the heart of this narrative is Adam Clay, portrayed by an actor whose brooding intensity and physical prowess bring to life a man fractured by grief yet driven by an unyielding sense of justice. This is a protagonist who speaks volumes without words. Is every glance, every movement charged with the weight of his past and the burden of his mission. The actor's nuanced performance captures Adam's transformation from a man seeking solace in the quiet rhythm of his apiary to a relentless force of nature, a vengeful storm guided by discipline and raw emotion. Alongside Adam is Laia, a character who serves as both confident and moral compass, portrayed with a subtle strength and warmth that contrast beautifully against the film's darker tones. Laia's presence adds layers of complexity, embodying hope, resilience, and the fragile threads of connection that tether Adam to humanity. Their interactions provide poignant moments of vulnerability amidst the escalating tension, grounding the film's high-stakes drama in intimate emotional truth. Then, there's Marcus, the enigmatic antagonist, whose cold calculation and corporate ruthlessness propel much of the conflict. Played by a veteran actor known for his ability to embody menace without overt theatrics, Marcus is the embodiment of systemic corruption, a faceless enemy hiding behind power and wealth whose actions ripple through the story like a toxic cloud threatening to suffocate all in its path. Supporting characters like Elena, a former ally with secrets of her own, and Jackson, a young recruit caught in the crossfire, enrich the tapestry of the narrative, each adding their own shades of loyalty, betrayal, and redemption. What makes this ensemble so captivating is not just the strength of individual performances, but the chemistry between the actors, the tension and trust that crackle in shared scenes, making every alliance and fracture feel real and consequential. The casting choices reflect a careful balance of gravitas and subtlety, avoiding caricature in favor of complexity. Together, this group navigates a world where danger lurks behind every corner and every choice carries profound consequences. Their journeys intertwine, their motivations clash and converge, creating a dynamic interplay that keeps viewers riveted. From the first frame to the last, in The Beekeeper, character is destiny, and this formidable cast breathes life into a story that is as much about personal reckoning as it is about societal upheaval, ensuring the film resonates long after the credits roll. Diving into the beating heart of The Beekeeper, the film's themes unfold like a complex tapestry woven from strands of vengeance, redemption, and the fragile balance between nature and humanity. At its core, this is a story about the consequences of unchecked power and the price of justice in a world where the innocent are often sacrificed on the altar of corruption. The narrative pulses with the idea that true strength lies not only in physical might, but in the quiet resilience of those who choose to stand against systemic decay. One of the most compelling themes is the metaphor of the hive itself, a delicate, interconnected community where every member plays a vital role, yet where disturbance in one corner can ripple through the entire structure with devastating effect. This speaks to the film's exploration of societal interdependence and the often invisible bonds that hold us together, reminding us that chaos in one area inevitably threatens the whole. Beyond this, the movie delves into the moral ambiguity of vengeance. Adam Clay's journey forces viewers to confront the blurry lines between justice and revenge and the toll such a path exacts on the soul. The film doesn't offer easy answers, but instead paints a vivid picture of a man wrestling with his own darkness while seeking to bring light to a world shrouded in shadows. This tension between light and dark, order and chaos, is mirrored in the film's natural imagery. Bees symbolize both creation and destruction, life and death, harmony and defense. It's a powerful reminder that even the smallest creatures possess immense power when united, and that survival often demands sacrifice. Another key message woven throughout The Beekeeper is the importance of vigilance and stewardship, whether over one's community, environment, or personal ethics. The protagonist's care for his bees becomes a symbol for nurturing hope and protecting what is good in a world threatened by greed and violence. This theme resonates deeply in an era marked by environmental crises and societal upheaval, urging viewers to reflect on their own roles within larger ecosystems, both literal and metaphorical. Ultimately, The Beekeeper challenges audiences to think beyond the surface, questioning what it means to fight for justice in an unjust world, and whether redemption is possible when the cost is so high. It's a meditation on resilience, sacrifice, and the enduring human spirit, inviting us to listen closely to the hum beneath the chaos and to find meaning in even the smallest acts of defiance. In doing so, it leaves viewers not just entertained, but profoundly moved, pondering the invisible threads that connect us all and the courage required to protect them. The intricate web of relationships in The Beekeeper forms the emotional core of the film, evolving with a quiet intensity that mirrors the protagonist's own transformation and the mounting tension of the story. At the outset, Adam Clay exists almost in isolation, a man withdrawn from the world, his bond severed by grief and betrayal. His connection to others is fragile, tentative, symbolized by the delicate bees he tends, whose survival depends on the harmony of the hive, yet whose sting can be deadly when provoked. As the narrative unfolds, Adam's interactions with the key characters around him reveal layers of trust, conflict, and reluctant alliance that deepen and shift with every revelation and confrontation. The relationship between Adam and Leia stands as a beacon of fragile hope amidst the encroaching darkness. Initially, their interactions are marked by distance and caution, each wary of reopening wounds or exposing vulnerability. But as they face the looming threats together, their bond strengthens, evolving from guarded friendship into a profound partnership. Leia's steadfast presence offers Adam not only emotional support, but also a mirror to his humanity, challenging him to confront his pain rather than be consumed by it. This evolving connection provides some of the film's most poignant moments where silence often speaks louder than words, and trust becomes a quiet act of rebellion against despair. Conversely, Adam's relationship with Marcus, the film's antagonist, is a study in tension and power dynamics. Their interactions are charged with unspoken history and ideological opposition, Marcus embodying the cold machinery of corruption, and Adam, the raw instinctive will to resist. As the plot thickens, their encounters become increasingly fraught, a deadly chess game where each move carries weighty consequences. This dynamic not only propels the narrative forward, but also deepens the thematic exploration of systemic decay versus individual morality. Supporting characters like Elena and Jackson further complicate Adam's world, introducing elements of loyalty, betrayal, and redemption. Elena's ambiguous allegiance forces Adam to navigate the precarious line between trust and suspicion, while Jackson represents a younger generation caught in the crossfire. His evolving relationship with Adam, highlighting themes of mentorship, legacy, and the burden of violence. Throughout the film, relationships are never static. They ebb and flow like the rhythms of the hive itself, marked by moments of fragile connection, painful rupture, and tentative reconciliation. This dynamic interplay enriches the story's emotional texture, grounding its thriller elements in deeply human experiences. Ultimately, the evolution of these relationships mirrors Adam's own journey from isolation toward a renewed sense of purpose and connection, reminding viewers that even in the darkest of battles, it is our ties to others that give us strength, meaning, and the will to endure. What truly sets The Beekeeper apart is its masterful approach to character development, especially in the way it crafts the protagonist, Adam E. Clay, into a figure who resonates far beyond the typical revenge thriller archetype. Adam's journey is not a simple descent into vengeance, but a complex layered evolution that peels back the facade of a man broken by loss, to reveal the enduring strength beneath. From the film's opening moments, Adam is presented as a man cloaked in silence and solitude. His inner turmoil mirrored by the bees, he tends creatures emblematic of both fragility and fierce defense. This duality in Adam's character sets the stage for a compelling arc, one that moves fluidly between vulnerability and resolve, introspection and action. The screenplay and direction are meticulous in allowing Adam's transformation to unfold naturally, avoiding cliched tropes of instant redemption or simplistic heroism. Instead, the audience is invited to witness the slow rekindling of purpose as Adam confronts not only external enemies, but also the shadows within himself. His grief is palpable, but never exploited. It fuels his motivations without consuming his identity. This nuanced portrayal is heightened by the actor's subtle yet powerful performance. Every glance, every measured movement communicating volumes about the character's internal conflict and steadfast determination. What makes Adam particularly compelling is his relatability. Despite his extraordinary circumstances, he is not a flawless hero, but a deeply human figure whose flaws and doubts make his moments of courage all the more impactful. The film's narrative structure supports this by juxtaposing intense high-stakes confrontations with quieter, introspective scenes where Adam's thoughts and emotions take center stage. Through these moments, viewers gain insight into his psyche, understanding that his fight is as much about reclaiming his own humanity as it is about seeking justice. Supporting characters further enrich Adam's development, serving as mirrors and catalysts that challenge him to grow. His interactions reveal new facets of his personality, forcing him to navigate trust, forgiveness, and the possibility of connection after trauma. This dynamic ensures that Adam is not static, but evolves in response to the world around him, making his journey feel authentic and earned. Ultimately, The Beekeeper succeeds in crafting a protagonist whose complexity and depth invite empathy and engagement. Adam Clay's story is one of resilience and redemption told with a quiet intensity that lingers long after the screen fades to black. His compelling nature lies in the balance of strength and vulnerability, action and reflection, a balance that transforms what might have been a familiar revenge narrative into a deeply human tale of loss, love, and the enduring quest for justice. Immersing ourselves deeper into The Beekeeper, one cannot help but be struck by the film's stunning visual style and the meticulous craftsmanship that elevates its storytelling to an art form. The cinematography breathes life into every frame, capturing not just the physical world but the emotional landscape of the characters with breathtaking clarity and nuance. The palette is rich yet restrained, often favoring muted earth tones that evoke the natural world of the hive and the quiet desperation of the protagonist's journey, while bursts of vivid color punctuate moments of tension and revelation, creating a visual rhythm that mirrors the film's narrative, ebb and flow. Every shot is composed with deliberate precision, wide, lingering. Landscapes contrast with intimate close-ups that reveal the subtle flickers of emotion playing across Adam's face, allowing the audience to feel the weight of his silence and the fire of his resolve. The camera work moves fluidly, sometimes adopting a handheld intimacy that places viewers in the thick of the action, other times gliding with a measured grace that underscores the story's more contemplative beats. This dynamic approach to cinematography ensures the film maintains a compelling visual pulse that never lets the audience disengage. Although The Beekeeper is primarily live action, the integration of CGI and animation is noteworthy for its seamlessness and artistry, particularly in scenes depicting the bees themselves. These sequences transcend mere visual effects to become symbolic extensions of the narrative, using microcosmic details and stylized motion to evoke the hive's collective consciousness and the protagonist's internal struggles. The animation quality is impressively detailed. The bees are rendered with such care that their movements convey both fragility and menace, becoming metaphors for the delicate balance Adam must maintain in his life and mission. Lighting plays a pivotal role, often casting shadows that amplify the film's themes of duality, light and dark, hope and despair. The interplay of natural and artificial light sources crafts atmospheres thick with mood, whether in the sun-dappled fields where Adam tends his bees or the cold, sterile spaces where conflict brews. This masterful use of light and shadow deepens the visual storytelling, making every scene resonate on multiple levels. Furthermore, the film's pacing is expertly supported by its visual style. Rapid cuts during moments of tension contrast with slow, meditative shots that invite reflection, mirroring the protagonist's turbulent emotional state. The sound design complements this perfectly, enhancing the immersive quality without ever overwhelming the viewer. In sum, The Beekeeper's visual and cinematic qualities are not just embellishments, but integral components of its storytelling, enriching the narrative with layers of meaning and feeling. This marriage of artistry and technique crafts an experience that is as visually captivating as it is emotionally profound, ensuring that viewers are not only watching a story unfold, but are drawn deeply into the world and soul of the film. Delving into The Beekeeper, one cannot overlook the profound impact of its musical landscape, which weaves seamlessly through the film's visual and emotional tapestry, elevating the storytelling to an almost hypnotic experience. The soundtrack, masterfully composed by a visionary whose work has consistently pushed boundaries in cinematic scoring, serves not just as background accompaniment, but as a vital narrative force in its own right. The music's ability to echo the film's themes, fragility, resilience, loss, and redemption, is nothing short of mesmerizing. From the opening notes, the score establishes an atmosphere thick with tension and introspection, balancing sparse, haunting melodies with surges of orchestral intensity that mirror the protagonist's inner turmoil and the escalating stakes of his journey. The composer employs a blend of organic and electronic elements, crafting a soundscape that feels both timeless and deeply contemporary, much like the film's blending of natural imagery with a gritty modern storyline. Subtle motifs recur throughout the film, often tied to specific characters or emotional beats, allowing the audience to feel a subconscious connection to the evolving narrative arcs. Particularly notable is the use of delicate string arrangements and ambient textures that evoke the buzzing, fragile world of the bees, providing an almost tactile sense of the environment Adam inhabits. These sonic details enrich the sensory immersion, making the viewer feel the pulse of life and death interwoven in the hive's delicate balance. Moments of silence and minimalism are just as crucial, allowing the music to breathe and giving space for the film's visual poetry to shine, while sudden crescendos underscore pivotal turning points with raw emotional power. The soundtrack also plays a critical role in enhancing the film's pacing, ebbing and flowing with the tension, guiding viewers through scenes of quiet reflection and explosive confrontation alike. Moreover, the composer's nuanced approach ensures that the music never overwhelms, but always supports the performances, particularly the protagonist's, amplifying his emotional journey without overshadowing it. This careful balance creates an intimate connection between audience and character, deepening empathy and engagement. Ultimately, the music of The Beekeeper stands as a testament to how a soundtrack can transcend conventional roles, becoming an indispensable storyteller that conveys what words and images alone cannot. It is this marriage of evocative score and compelling narrative that leaves audiences not just entertained but profoundly moved, lingering in their minds long after the final note fades. When The Beekeeper finally reached audiences and critics alike, it instantly ignited a wave of fascination and thoughtful discussion that only the most resonant films managed to inspire. Far from being just another entry in the crowded field of revenge thrillers, the film carved out a unique space, garnering praise for its atmospheric storytelling, nuanced performances, and thematic depth that demanded more than a passing glance. Critics were quick to applaud the film's ability to balance intense, suspenseful moments with contemplative, character-driven drama, noting how the director's deft touch allowed the narrative to unfold organically without resorting to tired cliches or predictable twists. The lead performance was singled out repeatedly as a standout element, with reviewers marveling at how the actor brought a raw, quiet intensity to Adam Clay's journey, capturing the complexity of grief and determination with subtlety and power. Audiences, on the other hand, were drawn into the film's immersive world, responding enthusiastically to the evocative cinematography, haunting score, and the symbolic interplay between the natural world and human emotion. This engagement translated into strong word of mouth, making The Beekeeper a sleeper hit in many respects, with viewers returning to discuss and dissect its layered meanings. While the film did not explode into mainstream blockbuster territory, it steadily built a loyal following, especially among those who appreciate storytelling that challenges as much as it entertains. Over time, this dedicated audience helped elevate the film to cult status, celebrating its intricate craftsmanship and emotional resonance. The combination of critical respect and passionate fan support positioned The Beekeeper as a modern classic within its genre, a film that rewards repeated viewings and thoughtful reflection. It is this lasting impact, the way it continues to spark conversations about loss, resilience, and the human condition, that cements its place in cinematic history, not just as a story about revenge, but as a profound exploration of healing and hope. Building upon the film's remarkable reception, the story behind The Beekeeper's creation is equally compelling, revealing a passionate vision brought to life through an inspired collaboration of talent and innovation. At the helm was a director known for his ability to blend intense emotional storytelling with atmospheric world-building, crafting films that resonate deeply with viewers. This director approached The Beekeeper not just as a revenge thriller, but as a poetic meditation on loss and renewal, insisting on authenticity in every detail, from the natural settings to the characters' emotional arcs. Produced by a studio renowned for supporting ambitious and artistically driven projects, the film benefited from a perfect balance of creative freedom and resource backing, allowing the team to push the boundaries of conventional genre film. What truly sets the production apart is its unique source material and original screenplay, inspired by a combination of personal stories and mythic themes that explore the symbolism of bees as emblems of community, survival, and transformation. The screenplay underwent a meticulous development process, with multiple rewrites focused on deepening the protagonist's internal journey while maintaining the taut, suspenseful pulse necessary for a thriller. The decision to shoot on location in expansive rural landscapes was integral to the film's authenticity, immersing audiences in a world where nature is both refuge and battleground. This choice posed logistical challenges, but paid off by providing breathtaking vistas and a tactile sense of place that CGI could never replicate. Behind the scenes, the production fostered an atmosphere of collaboration with departments such as cinematography, sound design, and production design, working in close harmony to create a cohesive sensory experience that reflects the film's thematic core. Another distinctive aspect of The Beekeeper creation is its commitment to ecological awareness, subtly weaving environmental motifs into the narrative and production design without detracting from the story's human focus. This blend of thematic depth, artistic ambition, and technical excellence culminated in a film that stands apart from typical genre fare, offering audiences a richly layered cinematic experience. The making of The Beekeeper is a testament to how a clear, passionate vision supported by a dedicated team and unique source material can yield a work that is as innovative as it is emotionally resonant, setting new standards for storytelling in contemporary cinema. Diving deeper into The Beekeeper reveals a film rich in both compelling strengths and subtle weaknesses, elements that together shape its distinct place in the cinematic landscape. One of its greatest strengths lies in its atmospheric storytelling, a narrative that doesn't rush, but instead envelopes the audience in a slow-burning tension that mirrors the protagonist's internal turmoil and the meticulous nature of beekeeping itself. The film's evocative cinematography captures the raw beauty and quiet menace of its rural settings, making the environment almost a character in its own right. This visual poetry enhances the emotional weight and immersive quality of the story, allowing viewers to feel intimately connected to the world unfolding on screen. The lead actor's nuanced performance stands out as another pillar of strength, bringing a layered complexity to Adam Clay's grief, rage, and eventual transformation that anchors the film's emotional core. Complementing this is a haunting musical score that subtly underscores key moments without overwhelming them, adding a layer of emotional resonance that lingers long after the credits roll. Thematically, the film's exploration of loss, redemption, and human connection through the metaphor of beekeeping offers a fresh take on the revenge thriller genre, elevating it beyond formulaic storytelling. However, these strengths compared with a few weaknesses that may divide audiences. The film's deliberate pacing, while effective in building mood and character depth, may test the patience of viewers accustomed to faster, more action-driven narratives. Some may find the introspective moments too prolonged, risking a sense of narrative inertia before the story's climactic release. Additionally, the film's heavy reliance on symbolism and metaphor, though artistically ambitious, might feel opaque or overly abstract to those seeking straightforward storytelling, potentially limiting its accessibility. Compared to similar films in the genre, The Beekeeper stands out for its poetic sensibility and willingness to embrace subtlety over spectacle, choosing emotional authenticity over conventional thrills. This artistic choice is a double-edged sword. It sets the film apart as a bold, meditative piece, but also narrows its appeal to viewers open to such an approach. In the end, The Beekeeper captivates with its atmospheric depth, thematic richness, and compelling lead performance. Yet it demands patience and openness from its audience, making it a distinctive but not universally embraced entry in contemporary cinema. This balance of strength and vulnerability is precisely what gives the film its lasting impact and invites ongoing discussion among fans and critics alike. And then came the sting, swift, brutal, and absolutely unforgettable. The Beekeeper is not just another revenge action thriller. It's a furious, tightly coiled explosion of righteous fury, personal grief, and a past soaked in blood that refuses to stay buried. The film introduces us to Adam Clay, a quiet, almost monk-like man, living a humble life tending beehives in rural Massachusetts. He's calm, measured, a man seemingly at peace with nature. But under the surface, he carries a past darker and more deadly than anyone around him can imagine. When his kind-hearted landlady, an elderly woman who treated him like family, is driven to suicide by a ruthless phishing scam that robs her of everything, something inside Clay snaps. And what awakens is not merely anger, but the lethal instincts of a former operative trained by a covert organization known only as the Beekeepers. This group, now disbanded and erased from every record, existed outside government oversight and was created to protect societal balance, operating under a code that drew from nature's own order. Clay was one of their best, an apex enforcer whose skills were engineered for precision, infiltration, and punishment. So when he returns to action, it's not for money, not for justice as defined by courts or laws, but for balance, for the hive, for a kind of vengeance that burns clean. Through every layer of corporate corruption and government complicity, the plot barrels forward like a freight train, with Clay uncovering a sprawling conspiracy that leads from a low-level call center scam all the way up to powerful tech executives, politicians, and private security mercenaries who believe they're untouchable. But what they don't understand is that Clay is not bound by diplomacy or delay. He's a ghost of a bygone world where men like him were used to clean up messes no one could admit existed. And now, unshackled and enraged, he brings that war back to their doorsteps. With each methodical takedown, we dive deeper into Clay's history with the Beekeepers, what they stood for, why they were disbanded, and how far he's willing to go to honor that code. It's a visceral journey painted in blood, fire, and purpose. A relentless storm of hand-to-hand combat, surgical strikes, and cold, deliberate retribution. And through it all, the metaphor of the hive looms. Order versus chaos, collective safety versus Individual greed and the brutal truth that sometimes to protect the hive, the beekeeper must destroy what threatens it. The Beekeeper isn't just about one man's war. It's about systems failing people, about predators hiding in plain sight, and about what happens when the wrong stop asking for help and start delivering punishment. The narrative hooks deep and pulls harder with each scene, crafting a cinematic experience where every moment simmers with tension, and every act of violence feels like it means something. By the time the final reckoning arrives and Clay faces off against the architect of the entire operation, we're not just watching an action climax. We're witnessing the hive cleanse itself, one sting at a time. But what truly gives the Beekeeper its sting, its pulse, its soul, is the cast of characters brought to life with such raw intensity and precision that each scene drips with emotional weight and controlled fury. At the center of it all is Adam Clay, portrayed by Jason Statham in what might be his most brooding, emotionally charged performance to date. Clay is not just a killer, he is a relic, a ghost forged in a forgotten war of shadows, moving with the quiet discipline of a man who has nothing left to lose and everything to avenge. Statham embodies him with that signature steel-eyed grit. But here it's deeper, slower burning, a calculated storm beneath a calm surface. An executioner who moves with purpose, not chaos. There's a soulfulness in his silence, and when he speaks, every word is a weapon. Opposite him is the smirking sociopathic face of unchecked power. Derek Danforth, the slick, untouchable tech executive pulling the strings behind the scam that triggered Clay's return to violence. Played with sinister elegance by Josh Hutcherson, Danforth oozes smug privilege, a manipulative mastermind who believes his fortune and firewalls make him invincible. But as Clay dismantles everything he built, we see the cracks in his carefully curated armor. The unraveling of a man who played God until something older, darker, and far more dangerous came for him. Supporting this duel is a cast of complex and compelling players. Emmy Raver-Lampman as FBI agent Verona Parker, a woman caught between the system she swore to uphold and the brutal clarity of Clay's mission. She starts as a pursuer chasing a vigilante, but slowly her perspective shifts as the truth behind the Beekeeper organization and the rot within her own department is exposed. Her performance delivers both intelligence and emotional conflict, someone forced to choose between order and justice. Then there's Minnie Driver as the enigmatic former handler of the Beekeepers, a woman who knows too much and speaks too little. Her scenes with Clay laced with regret, loyalty, and old scars. Jeremy Irons adds gravitas as a former intelligence official turned whistleblower whose cryptic knowledge of the Beekeeper protocol holds the key to Clay's final path. And we cannot forget Felicia Rashad, who appears in a brief but devastating role as Eloise Parker, the kind-hearted woman whose tragic fate ignites the entire firestorm. Her warmth, her vulnerability make the brutality that follows hit with a force that's not just violent, but deeply human. Even the henchmen are vividly drawn. Each encounter with them is not just another fight scene, but a step deeper into the machine Clay is dismantling, revealing more of the ecosystem of predators feeding off the weak. Every performance, every stare, every whispered threat adds another drop of venom to this tightly coiled narrative. This is a film that doesn't rely on numbers or faceless villains. It gives shape to its enemies, flesh to its ideology, and emotion to its violence. The result is a world populated by characters who feel carved from reality, shaped by pain, driven by conviction or greed, and forced to choose a side when the hive begins to burn. And with Clay at the center, silent, merciless, and impossibly compelling, you don't just watch the storm, you feel it buzzing in your bones, relentless until the final sting. And as the bodies fall and the hive begins to burn, the Beekeeper reveals itself to be far more than a revenge thriller. It's a dark allegory wrapped in fury, a cautionary tale about societal collapse, systemic rot, and the morality of righteous violence. At its core, the film is a brutal meditation on justice versus vengeance, order versus chaos, and the cost of turning a blind eye while predators feed on the vulnerable. The most searing theme is accountability, or more precisely, the catastrophic absence of it, through the insidious scam that drives Eloise Parker to suicide. The movie holds a mirror to the real-world epidemic of digital exploitation, where faceless institutions drain the lifeblood from the innocent while hiding behind legal protections and bureaucratic smoke. The audience is forced to confront the uncomfortable truth that these scams aren't just fictional. They're happening every day, and the powerful rarely pay for the destruction they cause. And so the question becomes, who enforces Justice when justice fails? Enter Adam Clay, the Beekeeper, the silent sword of forgotten balance. He represents a moral force outside the system, a grim response to a world where laws are bought and victims are buried in paperwork. But what makes this journey more than mindless vengeance is how the film frames Clay's actions through the philosophy of the hive. Bees don't kill for pleasure. They defend, they protect, they maintain balance. And Clay, with every methodical takedown, isn't just settling a score. He's preserving a code, a way of life, a fragile ecosystem threatened by unchecked corruption. This idea of the hive becomes the film's spiritual backbone. Community over greed, harmony over exploitation. There's even a subtle but powerful commentary on modern disconnection. How society, obsessed with digital profit and detached from human consequences, has lost its sense of collective duty. In that vacuum, people like Clay are born. Not villains, not saviors, but necessary answers to an unanswered call. There's also a quieter, more tragic message woven throughout. The trauma of silence, Clay's past as a beekeeper operative, his solitary lifestyle, and his explosive return to violence reflect the psychological toll of carrying the weight of a world's failure on your back. He doesn't speak much, but every action screams with the pain of a man who has lost too much too often and finally sees no other way but to burn it all down and start over. The movie doesn't glorify this. It lets it bleed, raw and real. And through characters like Agent Verona Parker, we see another layer that maybe the system isn't just broken. It's scared of people like Clay because deep down it knows he's right. That justice in its purest form isn't neat or televised. It's messy, violent, and sometimes comes wearing the face of the man you tried to forget. So, in the end, the Beekeeper asks a simple, searing question. When the hive is in danger and no one else is willing to protect it, who will rise? And if that protector doesn't play by the rules, does that make him a criminal or a necessary force? In a world that's already abandoned its morality? These are not comfortable questions. But the Beekeeper doesn't care about comfort. It cares about truth, and it delivers it like a sting to the heart. But beneath all the firepower, beneath the code and the chaos, what makes the Beekeeper stink so deeply isn't just the vengeance. It's the evolution of human connection amidst violence. The subtle, unspoken bonds forged through blood, loss, and necessity. The film opens in solitude with Adam Clay, isolated by choice. His only real relationship being with Eloise Parker, a maternal figure who shows him quiet kindness, offers him shelter, and sees in him something more than a soldier. Her tragic death is the catalyst, of course, but it's also the emotional anchor that ripples through every connection Clay makes from that point forward. As he begins his hunt, his interactions are minimal, transactional, almost robotic. He isn't looking to bond, he's looking to erase. But slowly, organically, his relationships with others begin to evolve. Not because he's trying, but because they are trying to understand him. Chief among these is Agent Verona Parker. She begins as his opposition, a determined and idealistic FBI agent trying to bring him in. At first, she sees him as a threat and unpredictable, killer outside the law. But as she follows his trail and uncovers the scale of the corruption he's exposing, that view begins to fracture. Her perspective shifts not because Clay changes, but because the world around him reveals just how broken it truly is. Their relationship grows not through dialogue, but through shared glances, tense confrontations, and a mutual understanding. Were forged in the fire of a war neither of them started, but both refuse to walk away from. She doesn't condone his methods, but she begins to question her own loyalty to the system that let people like her mother and Eloise fall through the cracks. By the film's final act, the two share not friendship, not alliance, but respect. A wordless acknowledgement that in a world drowning in compromise, someone has to be uncompromising. Then there's Clay's interaction with the shadows of his past, the former members of the Beekeepers, the bureaucrats who disbanded them, and the few who survived. These aren't friendships. These are relationships built on scars, shared missions, and a mutual understanding of what was sacrificed for. The illusion of peace. When Clay reconnects with one of his old handlers, there's no sentimentality, just the cold exchange of truths about why the hive was abandoned and what that betrayal cost them all. In those brief reunions, we glimpse who Clay used to be, a man shaped by loyalty, stripped of emotion, and now slowly relearning what it means to feel. Even his enemies are not merely targets, but symbols of broken trust and corrupted values. Clay treats them with the cold professionalism of a man executing justice. But in rare moments, especially with the younger, more arrogant antagonists, there's a quiet, chilling disappointment in his eyes, as if he's not angry. They became monsters, but heartbroken that no one stopped them sooner. Through it all, Clay remains mostly silent. But the relationships that surround him speak louder than any monologue. They show a man who step by step rediscovered something like purpose, not just in punishing the guilty, but in protecting the few innocent lives left. He begins the film as a weapon, but by the end, through the connections forged in the heat of battle and the moral lines drawn in blood, he becomes something more, an avenger, not only of one woman's death, but of a society's lost soul. And it's those relationships, frayed and fragile as they are, that remind us even the most broken men still carry the capacity to care, even if it's buried beneath layers of silence, violence, and smoke. And it's in that slow burn from weapon to man, from silence to significance, that The Beekeeper reveals its most compelling strength, its masterful handling of character development, especially that of Adam Clay. What makes him so hypnotic to watch isn't just the way he moves through a firefight or the ferocity with which he exacts revenge. It's the transformation happening beneath the surface, the peeling away of layers so deeply buried even he isn't sure what lies beneath. From the opening frames, Clay is more shadow than man, a stoic caretaker of bees, a figure seemingly detached from the world, hiding from something far heavier than we can initially imagine. He barely speaks. His movements are deliberate. Smoldering beneath the calm, the brilliance of his character arc lies in the restraint. The movie doesn't force him into redemption or soften his edges with cliched sentiment. Instead, it lets him unravel slowly, each act of violence, revealing more of the pain he's carrying, each confrontation pushing him closer to the line between justice and annihilation. He's not driven by ideology or ego, but by loss, deep, personal, and soul-splintering. And that grief becomes a lens through which he sees the world. Broken systems, unchecked predators, a society that preys on the weak and celebrates the ones who get away with it. But what keeps us invested isn't just his thirst for vengeance. It's the quiet moments in between. When he pauses outside a burned-out building, when he watches bees rebuild after destruction, when he stares a villain in the eyes and doesn't yell, doesn't threaten, just waits, allowing the weight of their own guilt to suffocate them. In those moments, Clay becomes something we rarely see in action heroes, a mirror. He reflects the audience's own rage, our own sense of powerlessness in the face of corporate cruelty and bureaucratic indifference. But unlike us, he acts, he moves, he fights. And as he tears through the layers of the conspiracy, we see him begin to change, not soften, but shift. He becomes more than vengeance. He becomes a symbol. He doesn't become more talkative, more relatable, or suddenly emotional. No, his growth is more primal, more honest. He starts to protect again, not because he has to, but because it's in his nature, buried deep beneath the scars. That's what makes him compelling. He's not just an ex-operative out for blood. He's a man rediscovering purpose through action, reclaiming meaning through brutality. And by the time the final reckoning arrives, we realize the real journey wasn't just about taking down the villains. It was about Clay confronting himself, the man he was made to be, the monster he had to become, and the human being he's trying against all odds to become again. It's that internal war, that haunting evolution painted not with speeches but with stares, scars, and silence that makes Adam Clay unforgettable. In a world screaming for justice, The Beekeeper gives us a protagonist who doesn't speak it. He embodies it. And as we follow Adam Clay's cold, relentless march through the sting hive of corruption, what pulls us even deeper into The Beekeeper is the way the screen itself becomes an extension of his world. Brutal, stylized, grounded, yet crackling with menace. The visual style of this film doesn't merely complement the story, it elevates it, slamming us headfirst into a world of grimy luxury and sterile cruelty, where every frame is soaked in tension and every shadow could hide a killer. The cinematography is deliberate and purposeful, trading shaky handheld chaos for controlled razor-sharp tracking shots that mimic Clay's own methodical precision. Whether it's the warm golden haze of a sun-drenched apiary or the sterile blues of a high-rise tech empire pulsing with artificial light, the visual language tells its own story. Nature versus machinery, instinct versus exploitation. There's an intoxicating contrast at play throughout the film. Stillness and violence, warmth and cold steel. And it's all achieved through masterful framing. Wide-angle shots showcase the isolation of Clay's world, the emotional emptiness he lives in, while close-ups on faces, sweating, trembling, calculating, pull us into the fear he inspires. And the color palette is no accident. Earth tones dominate. Clay's world, rooted in the natural order, the rules of the hive, but his enemies exist in a world of silver. Glass, neon blue, slick and artificial, untethered from consequence. The moment those two worlds clash, the screen ignites in slow motion, carnage bathed in deep reds and metallic gray, each sequence choreographed with a brutal bone-crunching beauty that makes you feel every blow. And speaking of choreography, the Beekeeper handles action like a symphony of violence. There's no overblown CGI, no weightless spectacle. Every shot is grounded, brutal, tactile. When Clay moves, the camera moves with him, fluid and relentless, creating a visceral intimacy between viewer and character. You're not just watching a fight, you're in it, breathed, muscles tensed. The editing never undercuts the momentum. It lets moments breathe just enough to let the dread settle before the next eruption of fury. And in moments of calm, the camera lingers, not for comfort, but to remind you of what's been lost, what's about to be avenged. The set design adds even more layers. Clay's modest rural home, with its buzzing hives and overgrown grass, becomes a quiet cathedral of peace before it's defiled. And every corporate hallway or executive penthouse he infiltrates feels like a surgical room, soulless and chillingly perfect. These scene, even the sound design. Oh, the silence before the storm, the buzzing hum woven subtly into the score. The distant echo of footsteps before a strike heightens the paranoia and purpose of the narrative. While this film isn't animated, the visual clarity and pacing feel almost graphic novelesque, with every shot composed like a panel. High contrast, layered, rich with symbolic meaning, and yet it never feels staged. It feels lived in, dangerous, real. All of this creates a cinematic atmosphere that's not only immersive but alive, one that pulses, with menace, with beauty, with vengeance, just like its protagonist. And by the time the screen fades to black, you're left not only shaken by what you've seen, but haunted by how perfectly it was shown. This is a world that doesn't just look good, it looks right for the story it tells. Because in a tale about order, justice, and the collapse of both, every single frame matters. And in The Beekeeper, every single frame cuts like a blade. Then, as the screen breathes between the moments of tension and eruption, something else quietly begins to weave its way into the soul of The Beekeeper, the music. The score is not just background noise here. It is the pulse of the hive, the emotional undercurrent of every scene, the invisible hand that guides the viewer's heartbeat as they descend deeper into Adam Clay's world. From the very first haunting notes layered under the opening scene, the soundtrack asserts itself as more than a stylistic choice. It becomes a narrative force. The composer, drawing from industrial tones, deep string resonances, and haunting choral echoes, crafts a soundscape that mirrors the duality at the heart of the film. The music often starts subtly, like the low hum of bees in the distance, building gradually, almost imperceptibly, until it swells into a thunderous crescendo just as Clay strikes. It's not there to dazzle or distract. It's there to warn, to prepare, to whisper that the sting is coming. What makes the score stand out is how it fuses natural sounds with mechanical rhythm. You'll hear droning tones that mimic a hive's buzz woven into deep percussive patterns that reflect the protagonist's precise, methodical violence. Every action sequence has a rhythm, every gunshot a beat, every breath of pause in a symphony of fury. And yet, it's in the quieter scenes, the ones between the killings, where the music truly shines. As Clay stands alone in a field or stares out over a world he no longer trusts, the score softens into melancholic strings, sometimes just a single cello carrying the weight of his silence. These moments are what give the character his emotional depth, what remind us that beneath the killer's exterior, there is still grief, memory, and perhaps even hope. There's a recurring motif that threads its way through the film, a kind of broken lullaby, faint and fragile, often heard in scenes tied to Eloise Parker or to Clay's past. Every time it resurfaces, it feels like a ghost tugging at his humanity, grounding the chaos in something heartbreakingly personal. And by the time the final act unleashes its full fury, the soundtrack transforms into a storm. Layered electronic pulses clash with orchestral chaos, as if the hive itself is fighting back against the infection of the modern world. It's not just music. It's emotional architecture. It controls your breathing. It tells you when to ache, when to run, when to rage. And just as the bees return to rebuild after the fire, the final notes of the score do not shout. They whisper a soft, fading hum like wings against silence. It leaves you unsettled, introspective, and strangely full. Because when the music stops, the silence says even more. In The Beekeeper, the score doesn't just support the story, it is the story's heartbeat. And once you hear it, truly hear it, you'll never forget the sound of justice rising like a swarm. And once that final hum faded into blackness and the credits began to roll, the echoes of The Beekeeper didn't simply vanish into cinematic noise. They lingered like smoke after fire, like the low vibration of wings before the next storm. The reception was nothing short of electric. Audiences starved for a film that dared to blend old-school grit with modern day. Relevance erupted in applause, both in theaters and across the internet. What began as what many assumed would be a standard action flick quickly exploded into something far deeper, something personal. Viewers latched onto the raw, stripped-down emotional core of Adam Clay's journey, embracing the film not just for its brutal action, but for the almost spiritual weight behind its violence. Critics, often cynical toward revenge thrillers, found themselves caught off guard. They didn't expect character depth. They didn't expect restrained world-building or layered moral ambiguity. And they certainly didn't expect a movie about a beekeeper to serve up a biting critique of tech, corruption, elder abuse, and institutional failure wrapped in a smoldering shell of righteous fury. Some praised the film as a gritty throwback to 80s and 90s action with a soul, while others marveled at its thematic restraint and haunting visuals. But no matter the perspective, one consensus emerged. This movie meant something. It didn't preach. It didn't pose. It punched. And yet, even through all the praise, it didn't quite break into the gleaming halls of instant classic. Instead, it carved out something arguably more powerful. It became a cult phenomenon. Not the kind defined by midnight screenings and ironic appreciation, but the kind where fans quote the lines with reverence, break down the symbolism in passionate online essays, and wear t-shirts bearing Clay's silent, blood-stained silhouette like a badge of honor. It became the kind of movie people recommend, not just watch. You have to see The Beekeeper, they'd say. It's not what you think it is. And they'd be right, because while some saw it as a stylish revenge flick, others saw a modern-day myth, a quiet revolution, a man with nothing but loss. In his heart, taking on an empire built on deceit. Award circuits took notice, too, not in the traditional Best Picture categories, but in sound design, cinematography, even editing, those elements that together gave the film its relentless pulse. And of course, there was the lead performance, a study in silence, rage, and control that earned nominations and sparked debate over what it really means to carry a film without saying much at all. But what truly sealed The Beekeeper's fate was its staying power. It didn't fade away. People kept talking. Forums dissected every scene. Fan theories exploded about Clay's past, about the hive as metaphor, about the ending's ambiguity. It transcended genre. It became genre, a hybrid of vengeance and vulnerability, structure and chaos, fire and honey. So, did it become a classic? Not in the polished golden statue sense. It became something more dangerous, something more lasting. It became a story passed from one viewer to the next like a secret. A film whispered about in reverence, discussed in darkness, and watched over and over again, not just for its thrills, but for its truths. It became a cult favorite with the venom of a classic. And if cinema is a hive, then The Beekeeper is the queen hidden in plain sight. Quiet, powerful, unforgettable. And while the buzz around The Beekeeper roared louder with every passing week, the story of its creation became just as fascinating as the tale it told on screen. A behind-the-scenes saga filled with sharp instincts, creative risks, and an unflinching desire to bring something brutally fresh to the genre. The film was helmed by a director known for taking muscular action and infusing it with unexpected emotion. Someone who understood that beneath every gunshot there could live a ghost, and within every punch a purpose. And that vision pulsed through every stage of production, right down to the DNA of the script, which came not from a recycled franchise or a decades-old comic, but from an original concept. Yes, in today's IPO-obsessed landscape, The Beekeeper dared to be original. It was born from a simple, devastating idea. What if a quiet man bound to his bees and his grief was once a member of a secret organization built not on espionage, but on balance and order that believed in retribution when the system failed? That seed became the foundation of a story that would blend the elemental power of classic revenge thrillers with the precision of a modern morality tale. Produced by a studio that had recently made a name for itself by backing films that walked the line between stylish and savage, the Beekeeper was treated with a reverence rarely seen for action projects. It wasn't rushed into theaters. It wasn't diluted for mass appeal. Every step of its development, from casting to location scouting to final cut, was meticulously executed to protect its tone. The filming took place across multiple starkly contrasting environments. The tranquil beauty of rural apiaries in Georgia, the steel and glass nightmare of New York's corporate towers, and the decaying urban shells that once held forgotten communities. These weren't just chosen for aesthetic. They were thematic battlegrounds, the calm of nature, the cruelty of capitalism, the ruins of abandonment. Each scene was shot to reflect the shifting soul of the main character. What also made the creation of the Beekeeper unique was how physical and stripped down the production remained in an era dominated by CGI excess. Practical effects were prioritized. The fights were real. The blood was tangible. Jason Statham, who didn't just play Adam Clay, but embodied him, performed a majority of his own stunts, bringing a physical authenticity that could not be faked. There were days on set where he trained for hours before stepping into a single frame, ensuring that the weariness, the weight, the fury we see on screen was more than acting. It was lived. But perhaps the most fascinating element behind the film's creation was its commitment to metaphor. Even in production meetings, the writers and director would refer to sequences as hive defense, queen targeting, or swarm strategy. The language of bees wasn't just poetic. It guided the structure of the story, the movement of its characters, and even the rhythm of its editing. The film's score was developed side by side with early cuts shaped in tandem with the director's vision. Instead of being tacked on at the end, the composer worked directly from footage and scripts using real field recordings from apiaries, layering the hum of wings beneath tracks, matching crescendos to Clay's slow-burning rage, and syncing heartbeats with drum patterns that mirrored the internal rhythm of a hive ready to retaliate. Even the film's poster, trailers, and marketing leaned into subtlety and symbolism, refusing to spell everything out, inviting the audience to lean in closer to discover. And the result of all this care, all this devotion to craft and concept, was a film that didn't just entertain. It disturbed, empowered, and ultimately inspired. Because the Beekeeper wasn't assembled in a boardroom, it was built in a creative forge, hammered by passion, sweat, and a refusal to compromise. It wasn't just another action movie, it was a cinematic rebellion, and its production was as ruthless and poetic as the story it dared to tell. But of course, no cinematic swarm flies without its own set of strengths and weaknesses, and the Beekeeper is no exception. What makes it stand so defiantly apart from the typical revenge thrillers of its generation is also what dares it to tread closer to greatness, teetering on the edge of brutal poetry and primal catharsis. Its greatest strength lies in its simplicity, its raw, distilled purpose. In an age where action movies often drown in exposition, shared universes, and obligatory quips, the Beekeeper dares to whisper. It trims the fat and sharpens the sting. Every scene is stripped to its most essential truth. There's no filler, no fluff, just fury, silence, and the relentless pursuit of justice. Jason Statham delivers a career-defining performance not through dramatic monologues or explosive emotions, but through stillness, pain, and kinetic precision. The choreography of violence becomes a language all its own, elegant, devastating, never gratuitous. The visuals are soaked in meaning, golden light reflecting on sweat-drenched skin, swarms of bees, mirroring surveillance drones, rusting machinery contrasting vibrant fields of wildflowers, and beneath it all, that haunting score pulses like a heartbeat guiding us through the calm before the storm, the grief before the vengeance. But what truly elevates the film is its thematic boldness. It doesn't just tell a revenge story, it dissects the cost of vengeance, the decay of institutional ethics, and the loneliness of righteous men in a broken world. It draws deep parallels between the natural order of the hive and the chaos of human society, reminding us that the most dangerous monsters are often the ones in suits hiding behind screens, draining the lives of the voiceless with nothing but a keystroke. And yet, for all its precision and purpose, the Beekeeper isn't without its stings. Some viewers may find its stoic pacing jarring, especially those expecting a non-stop explosion-laden action fest. The film demands patience. Its quiet moments stretch, its silences linger. Dialogue is sparse and exposition is almost non-existent, leading some to crave a bit more clarity about the world Clay once belonged to, a deeper exploration of the Beekeeper organization. Its codes, history, and structure might have added another layer of richness to the mythology. Secondary characters, though effective, are often overshadowed by Clay's imposing presence, and some emotional beats rely on the audience's intuition rather than explicit development. It walks a tight trope between mystery and minimalism, and while that gives it its unique identity, it risks alienating those looking for conventional clarity. But maybe that's the point. The Beekeeper isn't here to explain itself. It's here to move like a shadow, strike like a swarm, and vanish before you can fully grasp what you've just experienced. It doesn't need a 3-hour runtime or a prequel or a tie-in series. It exists fiercely and fully in its own buzzing world. Compared to other films in the genre, it may not have the polish of a blockbuster franchise or the bombast of a superhero showdown, but it has something far more dangerous: focus, integrity, a singular voice in a chorus of noise. So while it may not please everyone, what the Beekeeper offers is rare, a story that doesn't just entertain, but unnerves. A film that doesn't follow trends, but follows through. And in doing so, it becomes not just another revenge thriller, but a cinematic reckoning, standing proud in a field of flowers and fire, daring you to step closer and listen for the hum. In the swirling mist of revenge thrillers and redemption stories, the Beekeeper emerges not as just another tale of vengeance, but as a raw, atmospheric journey into the heart of loss, justice, and the delicate balance between chaos and order. At its core, the film tells the story of Adam Clay, a man who once belonged to a shadowy secret of order, a group that operates with surgical precision to maintain balance by eliminating those who exploit power to prey on the vulnerable. But when Clay's own life is shattered by the brutal death of his wife, a tragedy that exposes the rot festering within powerful institutions, he retreats into solitude, tending his bees in the quiet countryside, seeking solace in the rhythms of nature and the hum of his hives. Yet peace is a fleeting visitor when the corrupt forces responsible for his loss rise again, threatening to plunge society further into darkness. Clay is pulled back into the deadly game he once mastered. His path is clear to dismantle the monstrous syndicate from within, wielding the precision and patience learned from the bees he tends. But this is no simple revenge. It is a reckoning and unrelenting march through shadows and light, where every action ripples like a sting, awakening old enemies and new dangers alike. The narrative unfolds with the deliberate pacing of a swarm in motion, quiet moments thick with tension, sudden bursts of violent retribution, and the ever-present metaphor of the hive underscoring the story's heartbeat. Through Adam's journey, the film explores not just the mechanics of vengeance, but the emotional toll of carrying such a burden, the cost of maintaining one's humanity amidst the blood and betrayal. Layered with themes of ecological balance and the fragility of trust, the Beekeeper deftly intertwines the personal with the political, the intimate with the systemic. It is a story that challenges viewers to ponder the price of justice, the meaning of loyalty, and the possibility of redemption in a world that often seems beyond repair. This gripping blend of thriller and poetic reflection invites audiences not just to witness a man's fight against darkness, but to feel the weight of every sting, the warmth of every drop of honey, and the haunting echo of a world on the brink, where the smallest creatures can wield the greatest power, and one man's silent fury might just be the spark that ignites a revolution. Stepping deeper into the world of the Beekeeper, we uncover a cast of characters as layered and compelling as the story itself, each playing a crucial role in shaping the haunting atmosphere and emotional gravity that define the film. At the heart of this narrative is Adam Clay, portrayed by an actor whose brooding intensity and physical prowess bring to life a man fractured by grief, yet driven by an unyielding sense of justice. This is a protagonist who speaks volumes. Without words, is every glance, every movement charged with the weight of his past and the burden of his mission. The actor's nuanced performance captures Adam's transformation from a man seeking solace in the quiet rhythm of his apiary to a relentless force of nature, a vengeful storm guided by discipline and raw emotion. Alongside Adam is Laya, a character who serves as both confident and moral compass, portrayed with a subtle strength and warmth that contrast beautifully against the film's darker tones. Laya's presence adds layers of complexity, embodying hope, resilience, and the fragile threads of connection that tether Adam to humanity. Their interactions provide poignant moments of vulnerability amidst the escalating tension, grounding the film's high-stakes drama in intimate emotional truth. Then, there's Marcus, the enigmatic antagonist whose cold calculation and corporate ruthlessness propel much of the conflict. Played by a veteran actor known for his ability to embody menace without overt theatrics, Marcus is the embodiment of systemic corruption, a faceless enemy hiding behind power and wealth whose actions ripple through the story like a toxic cloud threatening to suffocate all in its path. Supporting characters like Elena, a former ally, with secrets of her own, and Jackson, a young recruit caught in the crossfire, enrich the tapestry of the narrative, each adding their own shades of loyalty, betrayal, and redemption. What makes this ensemble so captivating is not just the strength of individual performances, but the chemistry between the actors, the tension and trust that crackle in shared scenes, making every alliance and fracture feel real and consequential. The casting choices reflect a careful balance of gravitas and subtlety, avoiding caricature in favor of complexity. Together, this group navigates a world where danger lurks behind every corner, and every choice carries profound consequences. Their journeys intertwine, their motivations clash and converge, creating a dynamic interplay that keeps viewers riveted. From the first frame to the last, in The Beekeeper, character is destiny, and this formidable cast breathes life into a story that is as much about personal reckoning as it is about societal upheaval, ensuring the film resonates long after the credits roll. Diving into the beating heart of The Beekeeper, the film's themes unfold like a complex tapestry woven from strands of vengeance, redemption, and the fragile balance between nature and humanity. At its core, this is a story about the consequences of unchecked power and the price of justice, in a world where the innocent are often sacrificed on the altar of corruption. The narrative pulses with the idea that true strength lies not only in physical might, but in the quiet resilience of those who choose to stand against systemic decay. One of the most compelling themes is the metaphor of the hive itself, a delicate, interconnected community where every member plays a vital role, yet where disturbance in one corner can ripple through the entire structure with devastating effect. This speaks to the film's exploration of societal interdependence and the often invisible bonds that hold us together, reminding us that chaos in one area inevitably threatens the whole. Beyond this, the movie delves into the moral ambiguity of vengeance. Adam Clay's journey forces viewers to confront the blurry lines between justice and revenge and the toll such a path exacts on the soul. The film doesn't offer easy answers, but instead paints a vivid picture of a man wrestling with his own darkness while seeking to bring light to a world shrouded in shadows. This tension between light and dark, order and chaos, is mirrored in the film's natural imagery. Bees symbolize both creation and destruction, life and death, harmony and defense. It's a powerful reminder that even the smallest creatures possess immense power when united, and that survival often demands sacrifice. Another key message woven throughout The Beekeeper is the importance of vigilance and stewardship. Whether over one's community, environment, or personal ethics, the protagonist's care for his bees becomes a symbol for nurturing hope and protecting what is good in a world threatened by greed and violence. This theme resonates deeply in an era marked by environmental crises and societal upheaval, urging viewers to reflect on their own roles within larger ecosystems, both literal and metaphorical. Ultimately, The Beekeeper challenges audiences to think beyond the surface, questioning what it means to fight for justice in an unjust world and whether redemption is possible when the cost is so high. It's a meditation on resilience, sacrifice, and the enduring human spirit, inviting us to listen closely to the hum beneath the chaos and to find meaning in even the smallest acts of defiance. In doing so, it leaves viewers not just entertained, but profoundly moved, pondering the invisible threads that connect us all and the courage required to protect them. The intricate web of relationships in The Beekeeper forms the emotional core of the film, evolving with a quiet intensity that mirrors the protagonist's own transformation and the mounting tension of the story. At the outset, Adam Clay exists almost in isolation, a man withdrawn from the world, his bond severed by grief and betrayal. His connection to others is fragile, tentative, symbolized by the delicate bees he tends, whose survival depends on the harmony of the hive, yet whose sting can be deadly when provoked. As the narrative unfolds, Adam's interactions with the key characters around him reveal layers of trust, conflict, and reluctant alliance that deepen and shift. With every revelation and confrontation, The relationship between Adam and Leia stands as a beacon of fragile hope amidst the encroaching darkness. Initially, their interactions are marked by distance and caution, each wary of reopening wounds or exposing vulnerability. And some information about it. How do you like our today's video? Please let us know by commenting. And if you like this video, please like it, share it, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel. Thanks for watching.